Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of CIE 2025. This is our halfway day. We still have lots to come, lots has already happened. But yeah, so our next panel, or I guess our current panel, is the state of esports education. So we have 4 amazing guests, and I will leave it to them for the next hour.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. So hello, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm going to be hosting this panel today with this wonderful group of educators, managers, directors, a little bit of everything. I think we all wear many hats in this industry, which is pretty common. So just a quick roundtable intro. I guess I'll start since I'm already talking. My name's Chris. I'm the manager of esports at Conestoga College. Been a professor and developer of esports programming in college for the last 5 years. About 9 years of experience in the esports sector from professional, grassroots, collegiate now. Lots to talk about today. So I'm going to pass the torch around here to Bernard next.
Cool. Hi, everybody. My name is Bernard Matthew. I am the Senior Administrator of Humber Polytechnic's Esports program in Toronto. I'm also on the Board of Directors with Esports Canada, working on some cool projects at a national level. And I've been involved in esports for 20 years or more. I was a former Super Smash Bros. Melee competitor, ranked #1 in the country, 51st in the world. And I used to play fighting games as well, traveling with the jersey on. So lived and breathed this stuff for a very long time and have advocated it for even longer. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here with other talented colleagues.
All right, Travis, you're up.
Yeah, my name is Travis Bouchard. I'm the director of Vimy Esports, which is a esports academy, junior high school here in Edmonton, Alberta. We're in our 3rd year of existence. I'm also the vice chair of the academic subcommittee for Alberta Esports, and I'm the co-rep for Alberta for Esports Canada EDU.
Nathan.
My name is Nathan Koblun. I'm the chair of Esports Canada EDU, the National Council. I am also the director of middle years with the Manitoba School Esports Association, and I'm in the middle of a thunderstorm and could disappear at any point in time. I thought I would open with that in case I disappear, but really excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. And like I said when we opened this up, many hats are being worn in this sector. Some of us have been around for quite a long time, and things are ever changing. So we're going to kind of have more of a maybe unstructured, kind of structured fireside chat with the group. But let's start with some of the questions that we kind of already have prepared here. So whoever wants to start, how would you describe the current state of esports education across secondary and then post-secondary levels, just depending on where you're at right now, and then what that pipeline looks like? So whoever wants to start.
Sure. I mean, as a person who's working in the secondary space, I think been here for a few years and starting to see some trends and things like that. I think secondary is pretty exciting right now. I think it's kind of an area of huge growth. It's emerging right now, which is great. Sometimes you feel like you gotta get a lasso and kind of wrangle that that explosion of growth. But I feel like because we have that, what we're doing here is we're fueling more like standardization of things. So things like Alberta's academic subcommittee kind of standardizing what's going on. We're running more tournaments. We've had coach clinics, things like that, trying to set the grassroots of things. So that's exciting. And like I said, definitely, growth and emerging are the words I would use for sure. The big push on our ends of things are more schools and more school boards trying to adopt esports as an option for their student athletes. And whether that means it's, integration with their actual curriculum, help with STEM and things like that, or just as an option for, a club in the school. The more we can get schools and school boards on board, that's only going to help even make it bigger, right? So.
Yeah, that's great. Always trying here to make sure that we're engaged with school boards and all of the different kind of pieces to all of our different provinces and the provincial bodies and the Canadian body at large. Bernard, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say it's temperamental. That's the current state, or mercurial, whatever word. And there's highs and there's lows. My window into what's happening in secondary, like K-12, is through Ontario School Esports Association, which is a provincial org that supports K-12 activations, workshops, PD for new teachers trying to set up programs at their schools. And what we're seeing is, intramural leagues, some clubs, we're seeing some provincial competitions. Obviously, Nathan and others on the west side of the country are doing incredible things there. And they're able to get students involved in things like game design, broadcast, just even the business of esports. And while some of these schools are looking at structured curricular integration, it's still kind of rare, I would say, and kind of unevenly distributed. It's not quite there. We're trying to find our legs. Where I'm at the post-secondary level, it's there's a lot of momentum. That's how I feel. And even though it can change, we're starting to see if your program is built correctly, if you have the right foundations, which include honoring what your school is setting out to do and not living in a vacuum and just focusing on gaming within the confines of the screen, thinking about them as holistic, soon to be career people that are going to graduate, and you bring all that part into it, you have a real good chance of making it work. Like Humber, my program is 2 years old, and we have a full varsity program, scholarships, we have, there's gaming content happening, media, we have more formalized frameworks now with what they're doing, and even tying to like capstones and curriculum. There's so many great things happening. And then I guess, I want to cap it with saying Canada's progress is promising, but we're still kind of behind some others out there looking globally, like South Korea, the US, some states like Texas, for example, or just European countries in general, in terms of infrastructure and standardization. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. The downside, I think, and we've all kind of seen it in post-sec especially, is that, recently even programs are shuttering. Sometimes you see key staff being lost. So I'll reference Illinois State University out in the US, great program that's now closing, from what I've heard. Oklahoma Christian as well. And even over here, we've seen amazing people like, Myra and others announce their exit from programs. So it's challenging, right? Like there's this huge shift happening, at least in Canada, with federal rulings around international students. And it's like, you got to weather the storm, I think. Continue to express that there's value in what we're doing. And when it all settles, see who's standing.
Beautiful. Well put. And it's great to have these conversations and have that side of it too. There is a lot of highs, there's going to be some lows, and we have to talk about those or else we're never going to advance. Nathan, hit me.
Yeah, it's I appreciate the honesty that we can have here in this chat, and when I take a look at what we're looking at litmus test wise, right, and I get the benefit of looking K to 12, and that's the space that I kind of exist with myself being a middle years teacher, so I work specifically with grades 6 to 8 students. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of people who are not asking the question why, but are asking the question like, how can I help? And I'm seeing that come up a lot. My conversation with parents over the past 3 years have shifted from, this is the reason we do this, to them starting to see the impact that this program is having on their kids, and being able to see the way that it's changing a kid's confidence, or making a kid feel good about going to school. And we're seeing studies coming out of the U.S. that are talking about the impact on student attendance that some of these programs are offering, and there's just so many benefits at the scholastic level to look at using esports to build that community within your school, that a lot of schools are starting to explore and dabble in this. At the same time, again, wearing that realistic hat, we're seeing that this is not the same as traditional sport. And what I mean by that is, when I was a badminton coach, that meant that I had a block of time that was, 6 weeks where I was coaching badminton, and then I wasn't a badminton coach. And right now, I'm not alone in this. I know a lot of K-12 educators are program directors, and what we're doing is we're running programs, and we're running titles from September all the way until June, and it's a lot. So, I look at this, and similar to Bernard, there's tons of positive, tons of energy, there's tons of things to be excited about. We're seeing school districts and divisions that are looking at esports as an area to target a new population of students that they've previously been completely underserved in their schools, and we're seeing investment by some schools in that. But I also, there's a reckoning coming if things don't get to the point where we can make this manageable for the educators who have taken this on. And we've heard the word burnout tossed out. It's something that is constantly in my head. I'm constantly and yeah, that is absolutely not a K to 12 thing, right? This is not a K to 12 thing. This is everywhere. I mean, you guys can talk about that.
Yeah, it's definitely, that could be an industry issue that we can see. And again, it goes back to the very beginning. Too many hats. Right? We have a lot of hats, and I think Bernard kind of touched on this, and it's still trying to figure out what lane you want to fit in and what works for your program. And I'm seeing this from my side at Conestoga is we have so many pillars, and we have enough staff to kind of operate it, and students coming in and out and working in our spaces and doing all these things. But yeah, we're running annual programming, and not just, it's soccer season between September to December, and then you're done. And then you go to recruit and you're ready for next season. It's just ongoing and ongoing. And when does it stop? And kind of just knowing what you need to do to achieve the goals that you want to set, along with your executives and the rest of the group here and all of your communities that you serve. It's crazy. But I love what I do. I'm sure you guys love what you do. You're all here. And we have to have these chats to support, the students that are watching right now that want to continue and be us in the future.
I do think if I could add just one thing, another kind of unique thing for the secondary space is, in post-secondary, I mean, a lot of times the people who are running these things, they're staying at the same school. What'll happen in secondary schools here is you'll have a teacher who's just an all-star and sets up an esports program and everything's going well, and then they move to another school, right? So it's not only about getting those esports programs started, it's about, well, let's leave the foundation for it. Let's leave everything in place for the next person who's going to come through and help out, right? There's so many teachers moving around. It just kind of makes it like a unique problem. I've seen it at different schools, right? Where people have had these awesome programs and then they just die off because one staff member leaves. Like that is a major problem we have to figure out.
100%. And they've kind of put something in position that they feel is right. And the next person comes in and makes some changes, and it could be sometimes detrimental to the entire program too, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Can I tack on something real quick? Yeah, that was a great point. I just earlier today, I actually had my first meeting with my summer team. So I hired about 15 students for summer development and like all the different areas of our program. And one thing that I impressed on them is tied to what was just said, which is sustainability, right? This thing that we love so much and we work on for so many hours and we give too many hours for, right? Often it's like there's this thing attached to where we're like, got to be careful. You got to tread lightly. Also, I'm the only one that can do it. We don't say it out loud, but that's kind of how I feel. I think people hold it. And what I've been trying to tell anyone that passes through this space and works or leaves anything for like a collegiate program is, it's not about you. It's not about me. Like, it has to outlive us, right? If you're graduating, if I'm moving on, and if a teacher is moving on, whether that's a secondary or not, if it's not being built with that kind of structure, that's like, it's stepping back from this thing that we care about, which is uniquely difficult, I would say. It's not going to last. Right, it can't be tied to any one individual. I think that's something for sure that this highly passionate industry has a challenge figuring out.
Well put. All right, let's hop into the next kind of question here. So, how do you balance teaching gaming skills, if you do, with the broader educational outcomes like leadership, communication, or STEM-related competencies? And Nathan, you're up first.
Sounds good. I mean, it's kind of cool because we have like the grades 6 to 8, and then we have like all these different stepping stools that we can kind of comment on here, right? So I think it really depends on the program that you have. And at the K to 12 level, like when I'm supporting somebody who's looking at bringing esports to their school, one of my first questions that I open with is like, what is your purpose for this? Is this to build community, or is this because the community is there and you want competition? And that really dictates what you as a teacher do and bring to your spaces. So, when I'm running a practice, I have part of my players that I know are competitive, and those are the ones that I'm going to be focusing, on game specific stuff. And not that I'm not opening it up to other students, but that's where my focus is. But even at the grade 6 to 8 level, a lot of my focus is on emotion management. It's on interpersonal skills. It's on communication. It's on, my focus is on those STEM skills, because ultimately that's what those students are going to walk away with in my program and bring to their academics, to their school community. And the other pieces, like those game specific skills, right? Once they have that baseline piece, those are going to be developed at the higher levels when they get to high school esports out of necessity to survive at some of the levels of the, once you start looking at grade 9 to 12 or that, secondary stuff.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Bernard.
you want to hop in? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, anything. I was just marinating on what you said. I think I made a LinkedIn post 2 nights ago or something talking about my experience running this program for the last 2 years, transitioning from a life of a player at a time where nobody tapped me on the shoulder and told me that what I was doing was worthwhile. Or that it could lead to anything. I was just told, don't do it. I'm going to hide the console from you to do your homework. Sneak out when my parents don't know, kind of thing. And you fast forward to the present, and it's a very different landscape we're looking at. What I didn't know then, and what our students can know now at every level, especially at college, is that esports is not just the games that you play. It's a platform for experiential learning. It is a place where you're not a player, you're staff. I mean, every program that you look at, you have students power some aspect of it, right? Social media, data analysts, events. I'll talk about my program. These are actual jobs that students work. Data insight and analyst, web developer, front and back end, events, coordinators and assistants, live stream live stream coordinator, producer, social media, marketing communications assistant. I mean, I have a health and wellness coach and performance coaches. Not everything comes to mind immediately. But when you start working in this space and you realize that there's so much for them to do, it's really up to us to be the bridge. Sometimes students are only seeing the gaming. The gaming itself can be tied to so many other things. That, in my opinion, is my responsibility. It gives them a chance to build leadership, collaborate across teams and departments, develop literacy skills, communication skills, tied to this question. When you think about STEM, analytics and software, think about ELA, right? Storytelling, content creation, I even have students helping me with ideation around how to work with our sponsors and our brand strategy, because we have sim staff, sim racing, we have Roar, beverage sponsor, and they're like, this is super cool. What can we do? I'm like, we can make some content for you, totally student produced, right? So I think when done right, esports is it's interdisciplinary. It blends hard and soft skills, and it's an environment students are incredibly passionate about. So it's the perfect growing ground. And lastly, I'll say kind of like for me personally, like my philosophy is really tied to this. There's so much that you can do in this space, and you are really the barrier. Like if you want to do 3 hats, 4 hats, 5 hats, we encourage you. You should experiment when you're at school where there's insulation. And I can tell you, work life balance, play balance, whatever it is, but try a little bit of everything, because if you get out of here and you're not afraid of what comes next and how to leverage what you're good at, I think that's really powerful. That's what I want to kind of the jetpack I want to put on the back.
I love that. It's that big image that we always see in those slide decks with the esports athlete, and then there's 100 jobs surrounding it, right? Where photographers and videographers and event planners and broadcasters and panel hosts and panelists and all of these different things. I can add this to my resume now. This is the first panel I got to host.
The inverse too. Sorry, one thing is that sometimes people come to your program in post-second year and they don't know gaming or esports, but they have skills that can apply. So a lot of these conversations for me are like, you don't have to know this space. Your skills are super valuable everywhere. You have to figure out how to do that. So I say you can work with us for a semester, graduate, and never do gaming and esports again, but you'll have helped us and you'll have helped yourself in any industry you go to. So I see it as a conduit, really. And it's not supposed to be limiting. It's supposed to be open-ended.
Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I think the whole time we were talking, we've already mentioned a few times about the 7 million hats we might end up wearing, but there's a good and a bad side to everything, right? So the whole time you were talking, it's just like, yeah, we're in a space now that's emerging. If some more entrenched industries, if you wanted to get a part of it, maybe you have to have all these skills to be the social media person for the Manitoba Moose or something like that, right? Whereas Conestoga or somebody who might have less of a requirement for you to do something like that, right? So it's kind of like the good end of things is that you can try some things out, flex some new muscles, and see what you can do, right? So um on our end of things, and I love how the panel, like Nathan's already said, is we have a little more early years, we have some post-secondary, and I have a little more high school experience, so it's kind of nice we get the different perspectives. As far as like teaching the gaming skills, I'm going to come right out and say that I understand that it's one of the benefits of my program is like I get them for 2 blocks per day, and I understand that that's that's a luxury that I have. So I'm afforded the opportunity and a little bit more time to spend specifically on leadership, to spend specific blocks just on communication and communication within each game, right? I think as people who are trying to educate our student athletes and move them on to the next level, I mean, we can talk specifically about Rocket League communication and Valorant communication, but for a lot of us, it's how do you work within a team, right? Some of my student athletes, I mean, many of them do play baseball and hockey and things like that, but many of them, this is their first team experience. So like working them through, walking them through that new experience of how do I handle someone who's really upset because they just lost, and when is a good time to talk about this, right? So, and who do I talk to? What's the hierarchy of those sorts of things, right? So, um, I realize I have a little extra time with them, so we can do those sorts of things. So we're very blessed when it comes to that. We also have specific time for our program for some STEM related skills, some career related things. So we do things called career explorations here, where we have guest speakers from all different esports related fields, right? IT. We had a sports psychologist come in from the Sentinels. We've had uh, professors, researchers, and then they come to talk to the class, and so they can explore those things that way. And so our philosophy has always been, let's have a broad discussion rather than have my kids have a C++ certification at the end, and one kid in here or two kids in here are really, really into programming and they absolutely love that, and then the other 28 kids aren't super happy about it. Let's expose them to the huge, like you were talking about, esports player, and there's a million things coming out from it. Let's expose them to a whole bunch of things, and hopefully that light bulb goes off, right? That it's, oh, that academic came in and he was talking about this research that he was doing. That's kind of something I want to explore. Or I want to be a nutritionist, or I want to be a chef. Like we talked to NRG's professional chef, and so we all love esports, and hopefully our student athletes do, and hopefully that's the springboard into what they want to do for the rest of their life, right? So same thing with all the hockey players that go to our school or any other traditional sports. Is the professional, is the being a professional, is that going to be the ultimate goal? Well, hopefully we're working towards that, but really we're looking at 0.1% of people who are going to move on to that. So what other skills can we build while we're here?
Yeah.
I do
Can,
think,
can,
just to wrap things up on that, I spoke already about how I get a little bit extra time just the way that my program's set up, but I do think it's very important, and I would I would expect that anyone who's running an esports program thinks like this, and I hope they would, that whatever time you do have, there should be some time dedicated to how does your team communicate? What's the tone, tenor, and timing of their communications, right? Um,
yeah.
Talking about leadership, getting everybody an opportunity to be an IGL on a Valorant team. Maybe that's something that they're not comfortable with, and they need to just step out of their comfort zone, right? So whatever time an esports coach and esports director has, we should be dedicating a little bit of that time to work on those skills.
I've been using the term sandbox a lot in some of the conversations I've been having with high school programs in our region, or even into like our executive team at the college, and saying like, this is the time to try different things out with some of these students who
Mhm.
may not go pro. We don't all have that opportunity, and teams are so much smaller than your traditional sports teams too. So getting to that level, or being there, is going to be tough. So kind of to lead into that question, because I love the term Travis used here, the springboard of opportunities. So um we've noticed in a lot of the panels that I've been on or talked with or watched over the last few years, a lot of us in esports are kind of like self-made, right? So looking at the careers moving forward and the pathways, how have the career pathways changed over the last few years? Let's call it 5 years. Bernard, you can start with this one.
Yeah, so the first phrase that comes to mind would be like diversification, like tremendous diversification. So while you still have professional players and content creators, that are visible icons, which has been pretty stable or growing, the supporting roles around them are really the ones that I would say have exploded. So production, events, marketing, coaching, wellness, legal. This isn't like the mainstream esports side. There's just massive growth. So many, opportunities, companies, entities popped up even during COVID when we saw traditional sports suffering, and the bubble or whatever, right? Like esports kind of went on unabated. Esports betting companies came out of nowhere too, right? So there's there's so much here. I think on the collegiate side, the rise of collegiate esports directors, community managers, people in academia, as more schools have been taking on this as a real field of study and a place of influence. My mind also goes to all the people that I've met that work at different non-endemics but have a gaming branch and esports branch. I talk about like industry evolution. So Princess Margaret Hospital in Toronto, it's a cancer research hospital. They have a gaming community manager. Furniture companies, PC peripheral companies like MSI and Asus, and traditional sports teams, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, through the Raptors Uprising NBA 2K team. They have an entire team. They have created it. They have everything, right? So these things did not exist a few years ago. They definitely didn't exist when I was a student, when I was gaming. So, and then there's nonprofits too. There's tons of people that are working in the nonprofit space that are doing stuff in esports and gaming. So I guess in terms of the evolution and the career paths, to me, it feels like there's more options. Does it mean it's easy? No, it's still a bit of the Wild West. The end result is not clear, but the goal for me, and I think our objective maybe as a educational sphere, is to say, let's equip you with the skills, do this thing you love, and then prepare you for whatever may hit you in the face, whatever door you open. And that could be in another industry that's like parallel to what we're doing, but not directly into sports, right? Like some of the others I mentioned. And that's where I feel like my students have really seen the most success. I've seen some go through our doors, and the next thing I know, I'm at a big Raptors gaming event, and they're working it with NLSC. They have a contract, and I'm like, okay, well, this is not what you expected, but it's amazing to see how far reaching it is now.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. It went from you being the coach, analyst, and team manager to now having those specific roles when you're talking about the pro teams too, and we're hopefully getting into that transition on the collegiate and the K-12 side as well as we go. So Travis, let's hear from you.
Yeah, it's I'll be frank here. My job exists. You know what I mean? So like that is obviously a major. Yeah, thank you.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, like 5 years ago, the esports director at a public school academy did not exist as an option, as far as I understand, across Canada. So not only is that that's obviously a very, very specific thing, but that just means that there's an appetite out there for more esports professionals, right? So I had mentioned before that we had a professor of esports come in and talk to our class, or talk to our class remotely, and one of the questions that was asked from from our students were, how do I explore that space? How can I look for careers in academia for esports? And he literally was on another screen looking at, just listing off all the different job opportunities that came out specifically in the esports realm, right? So I would think, this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we go. I hear more and more roles of esports director coming up, more and more roles of, like Bernard was saying, support around major events. We've run through, Esport Canada and Alberta Esports Association, no less than 5 events that required casters. We were just at the Alberta Esports Championship this weekend, and there were tournament directors, there was extra IT, there was all these things that absolutely had to be there for that event to happen. And those are roles that are that people, maybe you don't end up being a pro, but maybe you want to stay in the esports realm, and there's places for you to work within the esports world for sure.
Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, it's I was struggling with how I wanted to kind of approach this one, and I think that Bernard and Travis have done a really good job to talk about like what's there. For me, looking at at the space that I'm in, it's what's not there right now. And when anybody who's listening right now, you got the list. You've seen that graphic by NASEF with all the different places that you can go with your skills. One thing that I find that is just my big dream for this space, right? And what I would love to see some development is that club or that Timbits style esports. And I say that, because I think a lot gets put on that development, and we hear path to pro a ton, and we hear about students going through scholastic esport and then jumping to making the decision of pro or college, and thankfully that decision is becoming less and less necessary as the collegiate space is so well developed. But I look at this and I go, some of my strongest students, or my when I look at basketball, your top basketball players are probably not playing for your school. They're probably out playing club ball over and getting very different development and stuff like that. So I hope there's somebody listening who's thinking about what that next hat they're going to try on is, and starts looking at what does this like club space look like? What does it look like to have esports that targets that youth demographic, but in a way that does what sometimes we at the school can't, and in a way that we can't. I'm the first person, obviously, as chair of the Educational National Council, to advocate for what we do at schools here and for our programs. But there's that community piece, that student efficacy piece is always first on my mind. But when I think about my hockey experience, I played high school hockey, but it was when I was playing club and house league that there was a piece that was missing that I didn't get with my school. And so I don't know. It's one of those things that just kind of, when I saw this question, we were first kind of mulling it around, and I heard some phenomenal answers, by these other panelists. It's just left me thinking about that space that just isn't yet developed. And who knows? Maybe somebody here's listening.
May I jump in on that just for a second? Just as like a counterpoint to that, not trying to say I'm completely opposed to that opinion, but I was just thinking in my mind, you're saying that the club is one option for esports athletes. I wonder if maybe esports might just go down a different path. So if you said basketball as an example, from what I understand, and far be it for me to be a U.S. basketball expert, but that is kind of the way that it works in the States, is that they play a lot of high school basketball and then they move on from there, whereas the clubs are a little bit less. I mean, obviously we're into academies and all that kind of stuff down there as well, but maybe esports could forge that path, right? Maybe the path in Canada for esports is scholastic to college to pro, depending on the title or whatever. So just something, as you were talking, I was thinking that maybe we do things a little bit differently as it is. Maybe that is the way that we could work with esports.
100%. Both sides could work. And I think that, Nathan, it's a good point of something needs to be done or tested and tried. It's something that I've always been passionate about, is that kind of grassroots community and then leading in. But now being on the collegiate side and seeing that there is no traditional pipeline, like Travis just said, you are a high school student, you play high school baseball. You go to college, you play college baseball, you get scouted, you go pro. We have a reverse pipeline in the collegiate scene where you go pro and then you come back to college because you've also been playing at home your entire life, right? Or online with friends. And we haven't had these outlets through the schools, through the elementary or the K-12 and then into collegiate. And now that we're starting to develop that, it's up to us as all members of different parties within Esports Canada and our provincial whatever to maybe build this. And we have to try each side. But you're right, I haven't seen other than I think Quebec years ago, they had, and I think it's still up because I've seen some posts as well, but they had the Esports Academy that was running out of Montreal. And I think George St. Pierre was like one of the main founders of that a long time ago. But they had this kind of structure that was club, but also had educational pieces to it. So there's so many moving parts. And that's kind of, again, goes back to that sandbox. We have opportunity to try things. The thing that I think that needs to be removed from the picture is the prize pools and the money from all of these different levels in order for us to get to that step. I'm an advocate right now, and it's a hot kind of topic of removing prize pools from collegiate esports. Yes, it's an opportunity for scholarship, but it should be kind of up to the institutions on how that's all set up, and our different board of governors of our different conferences or associations that we're a part of to try to get rid of that. It's a long topic. We won't get into it here. So speaking of,
you're just going to drop that?
I'm just going to drop that, and then I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to leave.
Isn't that no? Here's the funny thing. That's relative to, like, in K-12 when we do we're doing some stuff with OC and Minecraft and this provincial finals things in a few days. Whenever they run those events, the students aren't winning prize money. When I look at the traditional sports in collegiate, I don't think the players are winning any prize money either. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? You're representing your school. You're looking for the championship. There's something tying you to it that's beyond the financial. And so I don't actually think that's a hot take, but I might be the first time I've really thought about it. I think that from a total pipeline perspective, you got like mainstream professional teams, etc. You got post-sec, secondary, elementary. We can't. How you mentioned they go up and come back down or whatever. I think there's like a lack of awareness and connection, but it actually starts with us because we're already kind of here in the educational side. If we tie those lines a bit tighter, I think we actually can approach the higher level with a bit more force, and they can start to see that we're actually just ready for that. And that again would mimic what's happening in the U.S. Infrastructure that Travis was talking about. Because yeah, I mean, there's plenty of times where I've talked to teams and I'm like, let's do something. They just don't get it. Don't have time. They say it's like. I think it's us that needs to kind of get the wheels turning at a bit faster pace.
We also need the publishers to support most of this too, because they hold the keys, and we're going to drop and leave. We only have so much time left, and I kind of want to get into this one, so we can touch on this briefly because we just kind of talked about it. But how are non-traditional institutions or private industry players shaping esports as education alongside academic institutions? Not sure if you've just seen, I think it's Kai Sennett who just launched a streamer academy or something online. So you're seeing all of these different people getting involved in things. How are non-traditionals getting involved? If anyone has any experience with that.
Yeah, on my end of things, when you say private entities in education, my mind instantly goes to like your gaming concepts and game plan and Valor Esports, those sorts of ones that are paid for services that provide curriculum, provide drills and things like that for for coaches, which can be a wonderful thing for inexperienced coaches or people who need a little bit of extra if they have holes in their programming or things like that, right? And can be valuable in other ways. The other thing with those things, they can be kind of cost prohibitive. So one of the major things that we hear from, I have schools that reach out to me for whichever one of the hats I'm wearing at the time. I get reached out to by schools, and some people it's, we can't afford this hardware, we can't afford that. So there's no chance that they can afford those sorts of things, right? So there have been some other programs where entire school boards have bought that sort of thing, and they can help just teachers who may have a little less experience get their esports programs going. So on one hand, they can absolutely help facilitate more student athletes playing, and then like I said, on the other end of things, sometimes it can be a little bit too cost prohibitive when it comes to that. I would also say that my academy, I guess, would also be considered a non-traditional institution, in the fact that we're an academy where people have to, sign up to be a part of our programming. It just, in my view, and obviously I'm biased in this view, would be just another option for student athletes who want to spend a little bit more time practicing and doing some extra things, right? So I do think over the next few years here, you may see some more academies come up, um, things like that. Other non-traditional academic institutions may get in the game, for better or for worse, right? Like we were talking about earlier with the hats thing, right? There's always going to be a double edge to things, as long as people have the right intentions in mind, and then hopefully they're advancing what we all want, which is more opportunities, more spaces for student athletes.
Amazing, Nathan.
Yeah, we have our Manitoba School Esports Expo coming up right away, and I know Travis already mentioned the Alberta Esport Championship, and these we get these in person, big scholastic events that we run, but a lot of it is really thanks to a lot of these, like I would consider very non-traditional partners who come in and take a look at the audience that we get to serve through esports, and are able to see the market that is there. And so I think about Epson, who's been a huge supporter of what we're doing here this year, and I know they supported the Alberta Esport Championship last year as well, and using their projectors and giving them to these scholastic organizations at no cost, because they're helping us with our storytelling. At the same time, they get a captured room full of students and parents and educators and stakeholders who get to see their product put this out. And you get this really neat way of supporting each other in this. At the same time, we've been working with Payworks this year, who completely out in left field is not tied to esports in any way, shape, or form. They do payroll, and but they have seen this gap in wanting to have more female and gender diverse individuals looking at tech as an industry, and have seen this as a way that they can help target and have partnered with us to sponsor registration of schools that are looking at bringing students to address those issues. So I look at the interesting places that we're in right now, especially serving the scholastic audience, and where there's a lot of people here who are looking at this as a captured audience, a new underserved population. I know I've used that word at least one other time already, and I would say again to any of those college students who are looking and thinking about the next couple of years and springboarding what's next, finding a way in the job that you're in right now to see the audience that we have, to see who we have in our programs, and how can whoever you wind up with in whatever job you're in, how can you tie that to what is happening around you in esports and make those connections? It's there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I love that partnership outlook as well. It's been amazing having conversations with different brands or local brands who are like learning about this as we go and didn't know this was even a thing. And you bring them into our esports hub or bring them to an event and they're like, eyes light up. And how do we get involved? How do we get in front of students? Obviously, it's a sales play too. We're aware of that, but there's so much opportunity here, and they see I can get in front of them in this way with monitors or with projectors or with chairs or whatever it is. I absolutely love that angle. I'll leave the next part to Bernard.
Yeah, I think private industry is realizing our audience is their core untapped demo. We have youth reach, we have digital fluency, buying power, the freshest ideas, connection to culture in all these amazing ways that gaming already does naturally and organically. And now they're realizing, wait, we got to get in here. That's why you're seeing a lot more non-endemics attached to things. You see MasterCard sponsoring esports events. You see beverage, food places. Like I was at a major, and Domino's Pizza was there last year. People are understanding that you got to be here, 2 feet in the ground. Yeah, I mean, the rest of what I'll say is really tied to that, to sponsors, mostly non-endemic. If they facilitate a program like ours, what that does is just lift monstrously what we're set out to do. It's validity. It's what we're doing matters to the real world. If a company that's multi-million-dollar recognizes it, then why shouldn't you? It's a really easy case, for people to understand. And it also creates a sense of attractiveness for other folks that are also non-endemic. Oh, wait, you're aligned, so others are too. My door's somebody's knocking on my door.
All right,
I'm in a panel. Sorry, man. I thought it was somebody else.
I'll take it from here.
Sorry.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, guys, I can't talk. Sorry. What was I going to say? Yeah, more and more companies, they're realizing that, the educational institutions, post-sec are a place to do these things. And, at Humber, every partner that I work with, I've made a point to pitch on things like classroom visits, hackathons, academic projects. This stuff is a form of win-win, right? It's R&D for the company. It's students seeking real-world projects and ultimately jobs. These people can hire right out if you find a killer project or idea. And a lot of these companies, that we're working with, sometimes they're medium, small size. They don't have the capacity to do this R&D, and it's we're helping them innovate in a unique direction they couldn't otherwise. We're doing that with our beverage sponsor. It's Esports is their first jump-in point. They're called Raw Organics, and they're in Shoppers Drug Mart and Costco. And we're showing them the magical world of gaming. And they're like, wow, we can be a hydration option in this space. And we're like, heck yeah, you can. So yeah, I think it does wonders for our credibility. Students get to work with some real companies, and it just helps the space overall. So I think they're definitely helping shape the academic landscape.
I think one of the things that you said there that's really important is not only, when the sponsorship happens and you can take a breath of fresh air that you're either getting money into your event or into your program, it's the other half of it, of the, as esports people, we're always looking for relevancy. We're always making sure that, we're trying to make sure that we're at the forefront. People are talking about us, and having those big sponsors, it does that as well, right? And that's a really good point, that when you get a good sponsor on board, like in Epson at the Alberta Esports Championship last year, it's like that provides legitimacy to that event. If Epson can be here, then why isn't X company going to be there?
And
Yeah, I
hopefully in
think
the next few years it will. Go ahead, Bernard. You're going to say
no,
something.
no, yeah, sorry, because I got my students were knocking on my door. But yeah, the thought that I was going to mention was, it can also lead to a kind of fragmented ecosystem. And I guess by that, what I'm trying to say is the best results of this kind of stuff is when academic institutions partner with industry and maybe co-design curriculum or some of these projects and just work hand in hand. I think that's a bit of a unique path, but giving students hands-on experience, tying it to employability and making sure it's academically supported, and teaching these non-endemics how to actually give us value, not just take what they need. I think there's something there that we have to look at too. They're new. And they're not going to know how to move in this space. And we've already been burned by non-endemics not really valuing this, and student data privacy. And I won't drop names, but it could be dicey, right? So you got to walk carefully.
All right, so we are getting close to the end of this. I'm going to grab one question from the chat here, which came up. So, how do we build a program or structure that can stand the test of time and become sustainable long term? And I know that's kind of a loaded question, but I think Bernard brought it up earlier. Something that I'm focused on all the time too, with how we're operating. But sustainability is one of the key factors right now with programs that are closing, new programs that want to open, and how this is all going to work. So got maybe a couple of minutes each. So whoever wants to jump in first on this, go ahead. If not, I'm going to point fingers.
I guess that when we're talking about it's callbacks to earlier in the call here, but
Exactly.
Once again, it's like setting foundations of things. And so I had mentioned earlier that we did a clinic for coaches across Alberta. Having more coaches with the basic knowledge and feeling empowered that they can run their own academies or their own clubs, those sorts of things, that's going to help make sure that they're not just one and done esport academies, esports classes, esports clubs at different schools. It's going to mean that there's more people that can run those, right? And once again, another callback is setting a foundation within a school. And like Bernard said, it's not about the person who's running that, making sure that it's the program that you have is a program based out of that school. And hopefully whoever's running it, when they move on, someone else fills in those shoes. So documenting what you're doing, making sure that there's a standard that's being set, and this is how it runs here. Maybe not being super rigid, be agile, because the esports world's changed, and I don't know, Teo doesn't exist in Valorant anymore as of a couple days ago, that sort of thing, right? Valorant itself might not be the game in a few years, right? So setting the foundations of what you're doing so someone else can just step in and keep that momentum going. I think that's how you sustain it.
Yeah, gotta be agile for sure.
Yeah. I'd even say, and again, speaking from the scholastic space, right? It's that giving back piece. And, so many of my students who go through my program over the course of 3 years, I'm able to hold on to a couple and have them come back and do some coaching and working with my students, in this reciprocal, sharing of information. Because, when I'm not coaching a team, that's another thing that is off of me, that allows me to either focus somewhere else or possibly continue to do this longer and longer. And I know that you guys, I've been in positions where I've been asked if I could be a reference on students who are coming through, or and I know that many of you at the collegiate space have probably been put in similar situations. And Bernard, you talked about working with OC and giving back and supporting those high school programs and stuff like that. There's so many opportunities for us to not just wait for sustainability to be there, but to find a hole where they can come in and take a little bit of a load off of those people who are carrying a lot right now. And so that when that person leaves, it can be sustainable. And I think that comes from us finding ways of helping and supporting where we can. But when that space is developed and it is sustainable, you're going to see those, those jobs come up and people ready to put you in those spaces because you've proved your mettle there.
We probably say this too often, but the industry is still so young, and we use this and use this and use this. And I think I said this on a panel recently when most of us were in BC, like, we're going to have to stop using that kind of excuse at some point. But, the four of us, the other panelists on other panels in this entire CIE event, we're all here to build together and lay that foundation for the future us's who are going to be here. I don't know if I'm going to be in the collegiate space for the next 5-10 years. I hope so. I love it here, but you never know. Bernard, go ahead.
Sustainability is one of the most challenging challenges, I think, for any program at any level. In post-secondary, it is philosophical to me. It is about, do you really understand why you're there? Do you understand why you exist? Why did they give you the job? Who are you serving? Or is it your interests? Is it to do novelty things that are tied to a cool event down the way? I think a lot of programs get caught up in the fact that they're just gaming, and I think there are cautionary tales. Some schools that I've heard had a great trajectory, and then it didn't work out for them because they were in a box. They're looking in one direction. That's what I meant. They had blinders on. Competition. Play. Recruit, play, win, right? It's about so much more than that for the school too. For the place that you're at that doesn't fully understand this, you have to show, in my opinion, that you are philosophically aligned with what they're out to do. You're doing their job partially for them. You're helping. If they're pumping money into something and the metrics show that this is effective, and they're pumping money into you and yours are double that, that's all you know what I'm saying? That just says it right there. You need to show that you're valuable beyond what you set out to do. You have to be generous. You have to be, wide with your perspective. And I think a lot of programs, they get caught up in something and maybe they don't realize that. And then sometimes they get tapped by the school and say, wait a second, what are you guys doing? Are you okay? We want to build an arena, but we don't have a community. We don't have academic programming. We don't have, there's an order to things in my view. So I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong way to do it. The quote that has resonated with me for, not 2 years since I've started here is Shadi Hanna, a good friend of mine, told me, your program doesn't have to look like anybody else's. To me, sustainability is tied to, can you find your differentiator and can you leverage that and put a spotlight on that? Whether that's great, co-op and internship placements, or an amazing program and the content within and the guest speakers and all that, or just like where you are geographically. Do you even know what's around you and why that's special? If you're not doing that, I think you've really missed the point. And you shouldn't be surprised if somebody asks you, what do you do? So it's tough because we have to wear these 7 hats and figure this out. But I think the better we get at it, the longer we can be here.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed that. Aligning with your school strategic plan or your board strategic plan or whatever it is key. It's something that we look at all the time. Picking that niche and knowing, what you want to be successful at and what's going to be attractive to prospective recruits in the long term. So absolutely love all that. We are very close to the end. We've got one question left. We're going to try to keep this super, super brief, but each of you are going to have a different perspective of this for sure. But what do you think that esports education in the future, like the next 5 to 10 years, is going to look like? And that's definitely a tough one. So Bernard, you got a minute.
The next decade, I hope that we're going to see more formalized education, dedicated diploma and degree programs, more certification standards, embedded pathways in K-12, post-secondary, the pipeline that we always talk about, increasingly treated like traditional athletics. So governance, ethics, we're talking about that. Esports Canada, coaching certifications, athlete protocols. I want structure. We deserve that. And that's what we need to succeed, in my opinion. Academic standpoint, emerging fields, AI, digital wellness, interactive media, equity and accessibility as focal points, tying back to ELA and all those other soft skills, STEM. There are meaningful opportunities for students in urban and rural communities. We have not figured that out. Canada has talent, infrastructure, and momentum. We just need investment and collaboration. Policymakers, leaders, people like us, I think we can do it.
Travis?
Yeah, I love the coach certification. If Nathan will smile here because I've been bugging him and we got to figure it out. That's a big thing for me is we'll see that in the next little while. And hopefully I will help with that momentum when it comes to that. The other thing I wanted to mention is I think you're going to see a a wider adoption of esports clubs and curriculum within the secondary space here for sure over the next 5 to 10 years. Right now, once again, we're always talking about how young we are and how emerging we are, but we're starting to see data. Real life administrators, real life teachers are starting to see how it's impacting their students, and those stories will get to new administrators and board levels and things like that. And so you'll start getting some more adoption of clubs and curriculum over the next decade for sure.
And Nathan, you're still here, so last shot.
The thunderstorm didn't take me out. I'm so happy right now. No, it's hard to follow up those two because, Bernard listed everything under the sun that I've ever thought about in this place in a very succinct and pointed manner. Travis points out some of the stuff that we've really been wrestling with the K-12 space, especially around the idea of like a teacher being a coach, not just a supervisor, right? And somebody who can be there and support their students in so many different ways. And that comes with, education and support. And then again, it's the investment piece, right? And I take a look at this and I have really high hopes for the next 10 years because I don't see this as the next educational flash in the pan. And as a teacher, that's always that thing that we're always worrying about. Like, am I investing in something that's just that 5-year, spark, and then it's gone? And I don't think that. I see the students that my program serves. I see their hearts. I see the way that they come into my school, and they feel like they have nothing that they connect with. They're not successful in their classwork. They're not successful in the gym, and they walk into my eSport lab, and for the first time, they feel loved. And every kid deserves that, whether you're at grade 6, whether you're in grade 9, whether you're in grade 12, whether you're walking into your college that you're there to get ready for that next stage in your life. And what we do provides that opportunity for these students to feel loved in their space, to feel appreciated, to feel successful. And in 10 years from now, I hope that it's not 5 of us in here sitting here and having that discussion, that more people are going to see what we do and the benefits of it, and all of these other things that Bernard mentioned are going to fall into place naturally as a result of that. As long as we keep education first, we keep educators involved, we keep investing in our programs and seeing the value and success from them, we're going to see that pay off.
Yep, amazing. I love all of that, and there's so much to take away from really this entire panel. I think we could have talked for a few hours on this topic. We are at time, but I just do want to say, and this is from my side, and I don't want to speak for all of you guys, but I'm sure you're in the same boat. But all of our doors are open for conversation with groups. We all want this department of esports, this section, whatever we want to call it. We want it to be successful for anyone who's trying to sell this to a program or to their school or to institutions or partners. I'm open to talk to anybody, and I could talk for days on this too. So reach out. Hopefully we've got social ads or LinkedIn's that can be found on the panel sites. Does anyone have a quick drop of where to find you? Twitter and LinkedIn for me.
Me too. I'm on X/Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Drop me a DM or shout out, and I'd love to help you grow your program or your project.
Absolutely. Email's always open. You can search up Vimy Esports and you'll be able to find my email real fast. Instagram, Twitter, all that as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn and Blue Sky for myself. It's the best way to connect.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone, for.
Well, that is exactly an hour. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Chris, for hosting this time around. I'm muted. I am always muted. You would think after 4 years I would learn this. Well, we'll restart that. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Chris, for hosting on all of this. We really appreciate your time, and thank you everyone on Twitch that has stayed to watch. So yeah, that kind of does bring us to the end. So I want to give a shout out to all of you, as well as BMO, our sponsor. They have some great promos going on, so check it out on our Discord as well as our Twitter. That's the word for it.
Shout out to Sean, Fran, and BMO too. They're a company doing cool work here.
Yeah.
I could have mentioned them. So
Well, yeah, it is always really cool to see kind of the non-esports companies kind of coming in and accepting all of this. But anyways, so we will be back in about a half hour with our next panel, which is our monetizing esports, so revenue streams, partnerships, and sponsors. So maybe we'll talk about BMO there. All right, thank you, and see you guys later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See ya.